Pues llegamos a las 7 de la tarde, nuestra última intervención, ahora ya sí, recta final de esta cuarta jornada de Wake Up Spain, y quiero dar la bienvenida para cerrar esta jornada a Sri Dinesh Patnaik, embajador de la India en España. Embajador, muy buenas tardes y bienvenido a Wake Up Spain.
The lights are too bright, but it's wonderful. But thank you. Disculpe para hablar en inglés porque mi español no es tan bueno para un discurso, but I will speak slowly for people who cannot understand. But this is wonderful, and congratulations to Espanol for 10 years of service. But more important than that is the 5 years of Wake Up Spain, because this is the time when we need to wake up. And like Mira just told you in the last session, it's not just important to wake up, but to get out of bed. And that's very, very important. But why do we need to wake up? Because what has happened is in the last 20 years or more, we have taken the international order as granted, as something which is there for us. We don't need to make any changes. And this always happens. If you look back, this international order started in 1945. And that time, there were only 51 countries in the world. Today, there are 194 countries in the world. And the whole system has changed, but we still have an order which was made in 1945. I mean, it's like telling somebody to use a computer which was made in 1970 to work today. It just doesn't work. You have to, this order needs to change. And it is changing. It's changing slowly. It's something that will collapse on its own. If you look at history, no system has survived permanently. The Roman Empire, Greek Empire, Egyptian, you name any empire, any regime, anything, everything collapses one day. This system has survived for 75, 80 years. That's a long time. And so we are seeing changes coming, and we need to see how can we handle these changes. Sometimes people come who make the changes fast, but how do we survive? We survive by being nimble. You understand nimble, by being flexible. Systems collapse when you are very rigid, if you are nimble. And in our part of the world, we are more nimble. And why are we nimble? Because Europe today is facing what we have been experiencing for the last 60 to 70 years. And what is that? That decisions on our region are taken outside our region, that the global order is not there to protect us, and that we no more set the agenda. Europe is realizing the same thing that we have realized for 70 years. And so it's time for you to wake up, to realize that you cannot set the agenda anymore, that you cannot be protected by the global order which you are leading, and that it is time for change. And so, global crises happen all the time. I mean, this is not the first time. I mean, every time a crisis happens, we pretend as if this is the end of the world. A crisis is happening, everything will break apart. I mean, we have seen so many crises. There have been oil shocks, there have been economic collapse, there have been financial crises, pandemics, I mean, COVID. All of us remember COVID. In 2020, 21, we thought the world has come to an end. And the wars. I mean, Europe went through Second World War, First World War. I mean, they were horrible times, and yet we survived. And wars, I mean, even today, you know how many wars are going on today in the world? How many conflicts? According to both the Upasala Institute and the Center for Peace, there are more than 50 wars going on in the world today. But we hear about only two, Ukraine and Gaza. And so it is a world which is always in crisis. How we manage the crisis is very, very important. But every crisis has made us stronger. Today we live in a world which is far better than any time in the history of the world. Technologically, we are best. Medicine-wise, I mean, we got the cure for COVID within 6 months. Imagine if COVID would have happened. When the Spanish flu happened, which was not for Spain, when the Spanish flu happened, 50 million people died. If you look at the same population to people death ratio, During COVID, you should have more than 350 million people dying. But we managed to control it. The world didn't stop. Because of Zoom, because of technology, we managed to continue. We are in a very, very good sphere. So we should not be worried about crisis. We should be just looking to how do we handle crisis. How nimble are we to look at this new global order? And the global order is changing. There is no question about it. And the biggest change is that the global order's center of gravity has moved from the Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific. I mean, today more than 60% of world trade, more than 60% of population, 60% of shipping, oil, anything you look at it, is in the Indo-Pacific. But we are still stuck to the Atlantic as being the center of the world. And that needs to change the mentality. I mean, Spain was the first country in the Western Hemisphere to look for a sea route to India. You never reached, that's a different matter. But you were the first country, and you should be the first country to see how the world is changing, how you need to wake up and really look to see how you can take advantage of this changing world. And that's important, because everybody else is in the Indo-Pacific. If you look at the Indo-Pacific, the US is there, Asia is there, parts of Latin America is there, parts of Africa is there. The only continent which is left out of the Indo-Pacific is Europe. And so you need to have a strategy of how do you take advantage, because that's where the growth is, that's where the future is, that's where the potential is. And so it's important for Strain to understand all this. And why do I keep on saying Spain? Because it's Wake Up Spain. But Spain, in India we have a god called Hanuman, who his biggest problem was he did not know his own powers. Somebody had to tell him his own powers. And to a large extent, I feel Spain is something like that. You have a lot of things going good for you. Apart from being a great country with great people and great food and wine, that's a different matter. But you are really a great country. A country which has all the prowess. You have a diverse economy which very few people have. You have economy, not just tourism and services, but manufacturing. I mean, automobile hub. Today, all that we are talking about, the new defense deal that Europe is going to do, we'll have to use the automobile manufacturing sector to set up, because you can't set up new factories for defense. The amount you need, where do you go? You have to go to the automobile hubs. Same with services sector. You need technically qualified people. You need, I can go on and on about the other things. Sustainable energy. You are one of the highest top performers in sustainable energy, whether it's wind energy, solar, anything else. You're top country in IT. In fact, in India, we are doing a lot of collaboration, not only in IT, in audiovisual, in gaming, in CGI, VFX, in everything that we can look at. And so there is a lot Spain can do. And so it's not just Wake Up Spain, you really have to get out of bed if you want to start doing things, because this new world order needs that. And Europe needs to wake up. But Europe knows, it's the funny part about all this is that all of us know where the problems lie. Look at Europe. Last 10 years, you've had what? The Draghi report, then the Letta report. You know where the problems are. You just need the political will. And what does crisis do? Crisis helps you bring the political will together. The global order is changing, that is for sure. What was the news yesterday? That Finland is walking out of the landmine treaty, right? And Hungary is walking out of the International Criminal Court. So this whole multilateral structure that we have built up is collapsing. People are moving out. People are doing things on their own. So the people who will survive are the ones who are nimble. And what does nimble and flexible mean? Means you learn to live with the best of everything. In India, again, we have a philosophy, and very different from this. We do not see things in black and white. Because for us, good and bad are two sides of the same coin. We don't have a devil. You have a god and a devil. We don't have a devil. Devil is also a god, not a fallen god. He's actually a god. And for us, good and bad are two sides of the same coin. And so you have to live with both. You can't make a quality judgment all the time that this is good, that is bad, this is not for me, that is not for me. And for that, it is very important that you preserve your strengths, especially Spain and Europe. And what is the strength? One of the biggest strengths is your transatlantic relationship. Don't throw it out. The last 1 month, the kind of reactions we are getting from European capitals, the kind of reactions I'm hearing in Spain, everywhere, you have such a lot of things going. You have had problems in the past to the US, but don't break up the relationship. The relationship is something which you need to preserve. But preserving a relationship doesn't mean that you cannot have new alliances, new relationship. It's a positive-sum game. Europe has to start looking out with countries with which can have a different relationship. And with whom do you have a relationship? Like a marriage, a relationship can only exist if you are with somebody with whom you share the same values. For a long time, Europe talked about democracy, human rights, rule of law, freedom of press. But your biggest trade partners were China, Russia. I don't have to tell you more than that. Now, you have to be consistent. You have realized mistakes in the past of being close to countries with whom you don't share the same values. Don't make the mistake again. You have to start building bridges, relationships, trade agreements, collaboration agreements with countries whom you share same values. And your values are important because that's where you can focus on. You share the same values across the Atlantic, no matter. There's a new president who is trying to do something which he thinks is good for America, which is good. He's doing what he thinks is good for America. Recognize that he's trying to do something good for him. Do the same for yourselves. Don't say he's doing good for America, so it's bad for us, so we break up. That's not the way we look at things. Look at India. We have problems with our neighbors. But in all our programs, we work with them. We work with China, we work with Pakistan, we work with everything. You have to learn to work with everybody. And that's the first thing that I want to say. The second is, Spain is a middle power. And today is the time for middle powers. Middle powers have to get together across the world. Like in any society, the strongest people are the middle class. The middle class are where the intellectual capacity remains, where not the financial muscle, but the financial capacity remains, the willingness remains, and they are the backbone of every society. Similarly, in a global order, the middle powers are the backbone. They are the ones who have to work together to build a new global order or to rectify this old order and make it more sustainable, more inclusive, more able to function properly. Because the world order is changing. And if the middle powers don't get together, we will have a collapse, like what happened after the Spring States or after the First World War, after the League of Nations. Everything collapsed. We tried to build a world order, didn't happen. We need to now sit and work together to build a world order which is proper, which will give us what it wants, and which is reflective of the current realities. But one thing you have to understand, while it is good to have norms, standards, etc., don't use it as a barrier. Europe has done that for a long time. Today, when there are tariffs, you all scream, everybody, all of us scream. But nobody sees that you use standards, norms, indexes to put non-tariff barriers. And Europe is very good at that. We have been negotiating a trade agreement for the last 12 years. The reason it stops is because there's no problem on trade issues. It's the problem on the non-trade issues that we have, the non-tariff barriers. If you want an open relation with the world, you want an open, transparent system, you have to be open and transparent yourselves. You can't have one set of norms for yourselves and one set of norms for the others. And so, today on Wake Up Spain, which I'm very happy to be there, I have two predictions to make. One is Spain will fulfill the promise that it has, and Europe will become stronger than it is in the past. And that I am confident will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It's a pleasure, and thanks for your remarks.
Thank you.
Y gracias a todos por estar con nosotros, un placer, y mañana nosotros volvemos a partir de las 9. Hasta entonces, un saludo.